You have to use whom if who is the object, right? Given to whom. And you can do that. But this word, whom, is fading out of the English language. It is becoming much less common over time. And I suspect within the next, 10 to 30 years, it will be completely out. What is the goal of learning English? Is it to learn what is correct? Is it to learn all the rules? Why do you want to learn all the rules? And also, whose rules are you learning? There are rules from the 17 and 1800s about English grammar that, when I read them, don't look natural to me. Nobody would actually speak like that. So it's important to know what your goal is when you're learning English, when you're trying to master English. I'm going to assume that your goal is to be natural, that when you speak or write, you want to sound natural, reasonable, okay? So what we're going to do is talk about things that you may have heard are incorrect, but which are actually, or can be actually, very natural. Natural versus correct. And we're going to start with the rule that grammar teachers always tell you, the split infinitive. Now this, an infinitive is where you have usually a to and then a simple verb. This is where you have, for example, we need to walk 8 miles. Okay, that to walk there follows need, and that to walk tells you what thing is going to happen, but it is not the main verb of the sentence, right? Usually. So what you're told is that you're not supposed to put something in between the to and the verb. So if you were to say, for example, to quietly walk, right, or to quickly walk, people would say, grammar teachers in middle school would say, you're not supposed to do that. Don't split the to and the verb in half. You're breaking the rules. But I would say, go ahead. Go ahead, because people do it all the time. And when people hear the split infinitive, it sounds pretty natural most of the time. Here are a few examples. We tried to carefully enter the room. So to enter would be the infinitive, and carefully between to enter would be splitting the infinitive. We tried to carefully enter the room would be just as natural as saying we carefully tried to enter the room, or we tried to enter the room carefully. And I would say all of those are just fine. They wanted to secretly find out. They wanted to find out secretly. They secretly wanted to find out. Now that last one would be a slightly different meaning perhaps, but all of those sound fine and natural to me. Again, this is aside from the actual meaning here. We're talking about grammatically, you're told not to do this, but it's actually okay. You've heard, if you've ever watched Star Trek, to boldly go where no man has gone before, and they later changed it where no one has gone before. To boldly go, putting the boldly between the to and the go is breaking a rule, but hey, it sounds nice and it's very memorable. How about active versus passive? We're told, do not use the passive voice. The passive voice is bad. Well then, why does it exist? If you've ever heard don't use the passive voice, ignore that. Instead, you should want to know when to use the passive voice. Now, if you don't know what this means, active versus passive would be something like this. Let's see. Shirley painted the house. Shirley painted the house. That would be active. So you have the subject, Shirley, the action she did, painted, and then what she painted, the house. So the house is the object of the verb painted. Now the passive voice would be the house was painted by Shirley. That would be the passive voice. And we're told never say the passive voice, don't use the passive voice. Okay, but what if we're talking about the house? What if this whole story is about this house? Well, in that case, it might make sense to say the house was painted by Shirley. But in fact, a lot of the time when we do the passive voice, we even remove the subject, the one who's doing the action. We take the object and we put it in the subject place, so it is the grammatical subject now, and we say, it happened. So the house was painted. It's a story about a house. The house was painted. We could add by Shirley if we want, but that's totally natural. So just think about that. When the object or the thing receiving the action is important and matters, and we're focused on that, it's totally fine to use the passive voice. And sometimes, for better syntax, we might use it as well. So the factory was shut down by the state. What's more important, the factory or the state? Definitely the factory. So this is fine. Niven was given 3 awards by BGU. Was given 3 awards. We're focusing on that, and maybe we care less about BGU. We can say BGU, but maybe the fact that he was given 3 awards is more important, so we put that first. Here I have a typo. I was taken out of context by the paper. Now, take is the regular form, taken, given. Those are special tenses, right? Those are the past participle forms of those. The form is called the past participle. So taken would be the correct way to say that. I was taken out of context by the paper. Okay? Now, let's go on. Let's go through a couple more. We have a few more to talk about. I want to go quickly. What about prepositions? This is something that my teachers always told me in school. Don't end your sentences in prepositions. You're not supposed to do that. Ending sentences with to and by and for and from and with is bad. It's lazy. Who are you going with? Who are you going with? Sounds totally natural to me, and I think everyone would say that. Where are you going to? You might think, oh yeah, I learned you're not supposed to say that. But guess what? A lot of people do say it. Which theater should we go to? I don't know what you're talking about. She doesn't know where I'm from. These are all totally natural. Which theater should we go to? I don't know what you're talking about. She doesn't know where I'm from. Completely natural sounding to me. These are no issue whatsoever. Okay, now what about using whom? You may have heard this one before as well. You have to use whom if who is the object, right? Given to whom, and you can do that. But this word, whom, is fading out of the English language. It is becoming much less common over time. And I suspect within the next, 10 to 30 years, it will be completely out of all English. That's just my guess. But let's look at this. We need to find out who gave it to who. Now, you're supposed to say there, we need to find out who gave it to whom. So who is the subject, gave it to whom is the one receiving the giving, right? So that would be correct. But if we say who gave it to who, most people are going to use that. A lot of people are going to say that instead of whom. Again, whom is fading in popularity. Who should we invite to your birthday? Now, this one, a lot of people would say what you're supposed to say there is whom should we invite? Because we are doing the inviting. Even though we have who first, we are doing the inviting, and the invitees, the people we are inviting, that would be the ones receiving the invitations. So we would correctly say, whom should we invite? Whom should we invite to the party? Guess what? Almost no one's going to say that. Most people, pretty much everyone, is going to say, who should we invite? And I never hear whom anymore. To whom did you send the tickets? Doesn't that sound a little outdated? This is the correct way to say it. But the correct way to say it doesn't sound natural. The correct way to say it sounds odd. It sounds clunky. It sounds outdated. 99% of the time, when people say this one, they're going to say, who did you send the tickets to? And yes, you're going to end that with a preposition. Who did you send the tickets to? Who did you send the tickets to? Okay? So those are just a few things that are not so correct according to the rules, but actually very natural in the English language. You have to know what you're trying to achieve when you're learning English. Do you want to learn what is technically correct in the grammar books, or do you want to learn what is natural? And the best way to learn what is natural is to open your ears, to listen, to actually pay attention to what real human beings are saying. So if you have any questions about this, just let me know.